We want to thank everyone for coming out today for our presentation, A Graceful Exit on Business Continuity and Exit Planning. My name is Roxann Smithers with Smithers and Umewabo. We are a full-service law firm for entrepreneurs and business owners, providing litigation, dispute resolution services, corporate law support, as well as employment law and employee benefits. And we're very excited to have partnered with Robroy Wiley of Smart Plan Investing to give you guys a little bit of information today about what you need to be thinking about to prepare to exit your business. And we've looked at three main topics that are the primary ways that you're going to exit your business. And that is the sellout, preparing your business for purchase, the cash out, preparing your business to fund your retirement, and the peace out, preparing your business for an involuntary exit. We both have a real passion for working with business owners, working with entrepreneurs to help them progress their businesses and also help them to make sure that their business provides the lifestyle and the life that they want to have. You have to take into consideration that exit planning also improves the value of your business while you're in your business. It's not something to think about right when you're ready to exit, because you can't necessarily always predict when that's going to happen. It helps you to turn what is often a job into an actual business that can stand on its own. And that is the difference between creating income for yourself and creating wealth for yourself. So we want to thank everybody for coming out today. Robroy and I are going to toggle back and forth as we go through these topics. Feel free at any point to ask us questions if you have them. We're going to hit pretty much four main topic areas under our scenarios. So we're going to give you a little bit of advice about management strategies. Robroy is going to give you some advice in terms of the financial strategies you need to take into consideration. I'm, of course, going to give you the legal strategies. And then throughout the presentation and at the end of each section, we'll give you some examples that we've seen with clients that we've worked with or situations that we've seen in the public sphere that kind of highlight the issues that we're looking at. We've got a little bit of information about ourselves. We're very excited. Robroy is incredibly accomplished, financial planner and financial advisor.
Yes, so 55% of retirees retired earlier than they anticipated due to health problems or disability, as far as cashing out of their business. And one thing I don't know whether if I mentioned this at the very beginning, there is a fact that 100% of business owners will exit out of their business. You can choose whether or not how you want to hopefully exit out of your business. So in cashing out and using the proceeds of the sale of the business to help fund a good portion of your retirement, we're going to talk about management strategies, also financial strategies, and of course, legal strategies. And I'm going to share with you a story that actually ties into one of the points that Roxann talked about in the legal side, how a key employee actually messed up a sale for a business owner. Maria Villalobos had a plumbing company, and she had built it up over 25, 30 years. She had 55 employees. And she basically told her three key employees that within the next 2 years or year, she was planning on selling the business and retiring. And her one employee, her one key manager, Armand, said, "Good for you. You've worked really hard." And she told him, she said, "I could not have built this business without your help." So Maria, she kind of gleaned information from the internet and kind of decided that she was going to somewhat go it alone. She secured a business person to come in and appraise her business. So they appraised it at $11 million. She actually recruited a business broker who actually found her a potential buyer. She signed a letter of intent. And met with her key employees and said, I have a prospective buyer. And Armand said, well, how much is it for? Well, it's a little north of 10 million. So Armand comes back into Maria's office 2 days later, says, I want $1 million. You said that you could not have built this company without us key managers. And I have an offer from your competitor for twice the amount. And they're offering me a bonus. And Maria said, no, not going to pay it. Armand left. The potential owner or buyer dropped the sale because it was contingent that the key employees were going to remain in the business. And Maria attempted to actually put the business back up for sale. And she did get an offer, but it was for $7 million, but on the contingent that she work another 5 years in the business to help build up that management team. So Maria didn't consult with a legal or even have like an exit planning, anybody in there who could say, hey, you need to have your key employees sign non-compete NDAs, put in a system that they get paid key incentives. So the longer that they stay with the new owners, they get a bonus. So there are strategies to help secure those key managers. Because one of the other things is even if none of those key employees decided to do what they did, the owners would come in, interview the key managers, the key employees, and they're going to see that there's no NDAs or non-compete or any type of strategy in there. So they probably would have backed out of the sale because that would be one of the things that they would be possibly leery of and see as a risk.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
So I've got independent contractors, and in their contractors, the non-compete and non-solicitation. Should I have them fill that out every year?
Roxann's shaking her head no.
You do not. So your question was, you have independent contractors right now, and they have non-competes in their agreements. And your question is whether or not you need to have them fill those out every year. Generally, no. It'll depend on if your contract has a term and it automatically renews, then they're going to be under those non-competes for the term of that contract. Oftentimes, the non-competes also have a tail end where they last for a year or 2 years following the termination of the contract, or have geographical sort of limits or customer limits. And those things can outlast the life of the relationship. The state law is going to put some limits on it. You can't totally bar somebody from earning a living, but as long as they're key and it's reasonable, they are enforceable.
So one of the things I put down on the management strategy was loose lips sink ships. So Maria sharing with her key employees or key managers about her her selling the business and her signing a letter of intent and giving them the scope of what was going on falls into, you may have faith and trust in your employees, which is fantastic to have, but you don't want to be blindsided as an owner. There is actually another story where the key employee did actually ask the owner for $1 million. The owner did actually give the key manager $1 million because he wanted to leave. He wanted to have the sale go through, and his retirement or what he received was $1 million less than what he had anticipated. And there's an opportunity cost there as far as the one not securing the contracts with the key employees, but also if you're trying to exit out of the business when the sale falls through. And then if the business goes back up for sale, majority of the time, those other buyers, they know, and they're looking for either a reduced price on the business, and you've actually bumped down the transferable value in the business. And for Maria, it was a loss of $1 million. So she had a valuation of $11 million, and she did have the potential second second offer for $7 million. So essentially she kind of lost $4 million. One of the things that Maria did not have done with the financial asset gap analysis, so this is one of the key things that I do with my clients, is really what do you have now? Let's say if you have $500,000 in assets, and when you leave and you retire, and to maintain either the lifestyle or the salary that you're pulling out of the business, you may need like $3, $4, even $5 or $6 million to help you live during retirement. And we have to actually structure a financial plan into place where you're putting incrementally large sums of money away so that when you do exit out of the business, that hurdle isn't as high. Your anticipation isn't like, I need to sell this business for $6 million and hope on a wing and a prayer that I'll get it, where you want to narrow that gap as much as possible. And then you want to know how to leverage the asset benefits. One of the other things to do is the value driver analysis. So what does the owner currently have that is driving the value in their business, but what are other strategies that they need to implement to help increase the value of that business over time? So because essentially we're talking at least a minimum, if the owner is thinking about it, a minimum of a year and a half. Because you're wanting to go in there and really look at the components of the business. So you want to be able to get at least the maximum value for the price of your business, and also to help you minimize the risk to your personal assets. So in the next segment of Peace Out, I have a very compelling story that actually did happen to a business. So you're wanting to at least minimize the risk to the personal assets. Anybody have any questions? I'm going to turn it over to Roxann for
All right.
legal strategies.
Okay, so legal strategies to prepare your business for retirement. So obviously, the quickest or the simplest way at sometimes to retire from your business is the sale. So we kind of already talked about all of the factors that you take into consideration if you are selling the business. One thing that you definitely want to think about if you're using a sale to fund your retirement is whether or not you are doing a lump sum sale of the business, meaning the purchaser is either personally has the full price or they're getting financing to pay you the full price in one lump sum, or if you're going to do pretty much an owner finance, where either they're going to give you a certain amount down at the beginning to close the sale, and then they are going to pay you over a certain number of years to finish the purchase price. That can depend on the health of your business, and that means making sure that you definitely have a business that's in a position to be able to fund those payouts over the years. Those can be flat amounts that are paid out. They can be percentages of revenue that are paid out over time. So you'll really want to look at making sure your business is in the healthiest position so that you can guarantee that you're going to get those funds down the road if you do a sale. There are some other ways that you can also, legal ways that you can also fund your retirement that are short of a full sale. You can consider maintaining a minority stake in the business so that you will continue to receive income from the business. You no longer be responsible from a management perspective. They may want you to stay on as a consultant for a certain amount of time, or have some other sort of face role. If you have been a great rainmaker, you may get paid to have lunch and go to conferences to generate business, but not have to perform in the business. There are obviously the risks associated with that. The amount is not necessarily guaranteed, and it's going to, you're going to want to have more of a keen eye on who you sell to, because now you're investing in their ability to run the business going forward, because your retirement income is going to be tied to that. You can consider negotiating some sort of royalty payment beyond the sale if you have intellectual property or it's a ongoing sales business and maybe you're selling to somebody who has grand plans to really expand the business. You've kind of kept it small and managed it, but they're going to make it part of some larger process or larger plan, and you don't want to miss out on all the benefits of that. So you may want to continue to receive a royalty on a product or some sort of a royalty on the services, particularly if you keep key customers engaged with the business. You may want to receive some benefits going forward from that. You can also consider a revenue or profit sharing agreement. Again, you could divest yourself of all of your ownership interests, but still have a contract where you get some share of the profits or the revenue going forward. All of these depend on the continued health of the business and the management abilities of the purchaser. From your perspective, revenue sharing is far better than profit sharing because that means you get your money off the top. Okay? And for all of these things, one of the other things that you'll take into consideration are the tax implications. Investment income is usually taxed at a lower rate versus your regular income. Whether or not if you maintain an ownership, you then have some options for deductions. You have some options to reduce your taxable income if the business does have losses. So those are things to take into consideration. This is why we definitely advise that any sort of exit that you're planning from your business requires a bit of a team of experts to sort of help you do that. Here's some other ways that you can fund your retirement through your business. Throughout the life of your business, you can have your retirement accounts. There are various types of either individual 401ks, IRAs. If you have a fair number of employees and you're over the federal minimums, you may come under federal ERISA laws and have to set up employee benefits as well as benefits for yourself. And those are things that you can run through your business. From a small individual business to a business with multiple employees, there are plans and structures that are available for you to think about. So that sort of retirement planning is not just for employees in corporate America. It's something that individual business owners can do as well. Another option, Robroy touched on it briefly, is if you are looking to perpetuate a family business. So you're looking to retire, but you really want to pass the business down to the next generation in your family. Key legal things that you want to make sure that you're doing. You want to make sure that you update the corporate documents to reflect these ownership changes. Oftentimes you'll have a situation where a parent has started a business, they're listed as the sole owner, but they have kids involved in the business who are sort of operating as if they're owners, but on paper they are not owners. And even when the parent steps away from actual day-to-day operations, they haven't really reflected that in the official corporate documents. So even if you're looking to pass it on to a child or a relative, or even people that you may bring into your business as investors, and you've made agreements to give them a certain percentage, it has to be reflected in the paperwork that they have their ownership interest. Your bylaws need to identify them as officers, and this impacts their ability to officially conduct business for your company. And that really comes into play when we talk about the peace out later on and the phases that can lead to a peace out. Because a peace out can be sudden or it can be staged and it can be slow. And you don't want, one of the things that your family also has to worry about is how do they get things done for the business because they're not in place beforehand. Okay. And you also, if you're perpetuating the family business, you've got some of the same issues as a sale, same documents that you'll need, same factors that will impact the value of that business.
I can add a side note too.
Yeah.
With transferring, if you're possibly transferring a business to a key manager or key employee, you're going to want to bring in a business coach to evaluate the management skills of that key employee. Reason is that 75% of business transfers to key employees fail. And the reason being is that the key employee is, one, mentally, they don't see themselves as an owner. They haven't made that mindset and that shift. Two, staff may not see them as the leader of the organization. And a lot of times, a majority of the time, to finance that type of equity position, that's done on the contingent that the owner receives either a certain portion of the revenue or a certain portion of the profit monthly. And a lot of times that drops, and then the owner has to come in, revive the business, and hopefully be able to make a good outcome of it. If you're transferring it to a family member, in my case, our business is actually family owned. It's been in our family for 50 years. So I'm a little acquainted with the trying to get the exit for the transferring to the family. One of the good things about here in Atlanta, we have a Cox Family Center. So they specifically deal psychologically with the owner and transferring it to their offspring. Because a lot of times the owner doesn't want to give up the reins of the business, but it's the son or the daughter or both saying, hey, I am ready. I am ready to take on the reins. And they're like, no, I really raised you from when you were in diapers. You're still, still a little child. You may be 35 and have a master's and, have all this experience, but you're not ready. So they help really work with psychologically, either trying to get the matriarch or patriarch to make that road a little smoother in the process. So.
Yeah. And one of the examples that I've seen, and this one touched me a lot because it involved a restaurant that I really liked going to, and so I feel I was personally affected by this problem. So the restaurant owner wanted to retire, but he had not formalized any of the documents for the business. Excuse me, she had not formalized any of the documents for the business. Recipes were not written down. That is the product of the business. Okay, if you can't get my peach cobbler right, what is going to happen in this world? So the asset, that's intellectual property. Those are your trade secrets. They've got to be available and in a place where that can be replicated if you are no longer there. Vendor agreements were not in writing. And that's, if anyone knows about a restaurant business, your suppliers, those contracts, the timing that you have to pay for your supplies, all of those are key to keeping a restaurant running and keeping that cash flow running and keeping the prices on that peach cobbler down so that I can enjoy it. Another key point was the lease was in the name of the owner and not in the name of the company. And so that is difficult if you're trying to exit and extract yourself from the business. Now, oftentimes as small business owners and new businesses, you go into a commercial space. If you sign your lease, some people end up signing their leases before they actually incorporate their business and start their business, so they will sign in their name. So one thing that you have to think about, when you're signing it, you can designate that you're signing on behalf of the business. And then if you go ahead and you incorporate your business, whether it's an LLC, a partnership, a S Corp, a C Corp, you can then very easily have a resolution that says your business ratifies that contract. And so your business is assuming and taking responsibility for that contract. You can also have, oftentimes the commercial lease may require you to provide a personal guarantee, but making sure that there's a difference between you having a guarantee and you being the primary on that lease or on that contract. So you want to then have those leases or other contracts that you've signed in your name ratified by your business, assumed by your business, And depending on if the contract has a provision that requires the other side to give permission for that assignment, that you get that permission for that assignment so that you're no longer personally on the hook for that lease when you're trying to exit your business, or as you're trying to just manage your business going forward. That can be very important. Another example is a business owner that did that, signed the lease in his name personally for the business, never transferred it over, never had it ratified by the business. The business and the business partners had issues paying that commercial lease. Now this one individual partner in the business was personally liable for the back rent and for a commercial lease. And commercial leases can be particularly onerous. You're responsible for the full term of the lease. Some leases they don't even have to relet the lease when you default. So there can be a lot of things that are tied up if you're personally liable versus the business being liable for that lease. Any questions in terms of legal issues that you have to consider when you're funding your retirement? And so as we wrap up, we also just want to remind everybody that the things that you do to prepare your business for an exit are also a lot of the things that you just want to do to have a healthy business and to have a prosperous business while you're in it. It also gives you some ideas about the difference between creating a job for yourself and creating a business that can stand on its own. And as I said at the beginning, a job creates income. A business that can stand on its own, you're creating wealth for yourself. So we want to thank you for coming and thank you for participating. And you've got your handouts. If you guys have additional questions for us, you've got our contact information. Please feel free to reach out to us. And here's our contact information again. Thank you.
Thank you.